welcome back, and we finally reached that point where you're going to be able to play something on guitar. We went over the parts of the guitar, we went over string names, finger numbers, even how to hold the pick. We also went over a few different ways to tune the guitar, and now you're going to learn your first few chords. So what I'm going to do is take you through the CAGED system. That's C, A, G, E, and D chords. And those shapes that you do for those open chords, if you learn electric guitar and you start to play a little bit electric, you can also use those shapes up and down the neck for different guitar riffs and leads and so on and so forth. So before we jump into that, let's go over how to read a chord diagram, because any chord that I go over from here on out in our lessons, there'll be a chord diagram up on the screen. So what you'll notice is that there's going to be the name of the chord up at the top in bold, big letters. Right? Underneath that, you're going to have the string names, and you'll notice that they are above 6 vertical lines on that grid. And what that grid basically is the top of the neck of the guitar, from the nut, which is above the first fret, right, all the way on my diagrams, it'll go about 5 frets. Okay, some chord diagrams are different; they might only go 3 or 4, but they're all following the same rules. So we have 6 vertical lines denoting low E, A, D, G, B, and high E. And then you're going to have horizontal lines, which tell you where the frets are, okay? And then there's a couple other things that you want to look for. Up above the nut, which is the boldest or thickest horizontal line, right now you're seeing E, A, D, G, B, and E, but when we go over the other chords, those aren't going to be there. Those are just kind of to show you what the vertical lines stand for. So you'll either have an X or an O. An X would mean to not play that string for that chord, and an O would mean to play the open string, meaning we're not pressing down that string with one of our fingers, we're just going to play it open. All right, and so the last thing would be a circle or a dot with a number in it. And as we talked about in one of the other lessons, we talked about the finger numbers. Pointer finger is 1, middle is 2, ring is 3, pinky is 4. And from time to time you might see a T as well, and that would be wrapping your thumb around and using your thumb to play the low E string. Okay, so let's jump right in now. We're going to go over your first chord. It's the C chord, and I call the C chord the 1, 2, 3 chord. And you'll notice why. The reason why is because your first finger is going to be on the first fret of the B string. Your second finger is going to be on the second fret of the D string. Your third finger is going to be on the third fret of the A string. You'll notice an X up above the low E and an O above the G and high E strings, meaning that we're going to start strumming from the A down. All right? You might notice that I'm also wrapping my thumb around for some of these chords where there's an X on the low E. What I'm doing is I'm just kind of leaning my thumb up against the string so that it kind of mutes it, so that I don't get that low E sound as if it was an open. So I want to honor that X there and not have that E sound. So if I strum it by accident, at least my thumb is blocking it. Another way to do it, you can kind of lean up your ring finger to block as well. But if you're just practicing, you don't necessarily need to do that just yet. Just figure out where to put your fingers and start to get comfortable with that. 1 on 1, skip over the G, 2 on 2, and 3 on 3, hence 1, 2, 3 chord. All right, that's C. So we're going through the CAGED system, like I said. So that's C. We're moving on to A. We're going to go to A major. So A major, you're going to put your second, third, and fourth fingers in the second fret of the D, G, and B strings. Okay. Again, we're not playing the low E. We're starting at A. We're playing open A and open high E. All right, that's A major. A minor is really easy. If you're already in A major, we're going to lift up that pinky and put your pointer finger down on the first fret B. Same exact thing with not playing the low E, starting on the A and the high E strings are both open. That's A minor. All right. So major versus minor, if you want to know more about that, you can go to my piano lessons where we'll talk a little bit more in music theory terms what that actually means. But for now, I'll say this, and a lot of people say this, that major chords are just going to sound a little happier, a little more cheerful. Minor chords are going to sound a little bit more intense or serious or sad, if you will. All right? All right, so we're going to move on. That was C, and then a couple A chords. We're now on G. G is probably my favorite chord, and I know a lot of guitarists resort to this chord as their favorite as well. You might look at it and say, oh my goodness, I'm using all 4 of my fingers here. It must be so difficult, but it kind of feels very natural to the curvature of the hand. So we have middle finger on low E, 3rd fret, pointer finger just behind it on A, 2nd fret, then we have open D and G, then we're putting our last 2 available fingers all the way at the bottom of the B and E strings, 3rd fret, okay? Another way you can play G if you want is to lift up that ring finger and you can play an open B, and also if you want you can replace your pinky with that 3rd finger if you're going to play it that way as well. So there's a few different ways to voice a G chord, but that's G. All right? And then we have E. So we're going to go over E major first. E major is the same exact shape as A minor, just up 1 string. So 2nd and 3rd fingers on the 2nd fret of the A and D, then your 1st finger on the 1st fret of G. All 6 strings are fair game, just like in the G chord. E minor, very easy. Once you're in E major, you're going to lift up your pointer finger, and that's it. That's E minor. So E minor, the textbook way would be to play with 2 and 3, but you'll find that a lot of times when switching chords, especially in certain keys, it might be easier to play 1 and 2. As long as you're pressing down the strings on the correct frets, it's still going to sound the same. There's no difference between this and this. It's exactly the same. So sometimes you might feel comfortable with different fingerings, and that's totally fine. I'm just giving you, in general, the more textbook way to play things. And every once in a while, I'll give you, my 2 cents on how I would play it as well. All right. So that brings us to D. So for the D chord, we're going to put our 1st finger on the 2nd fret of the G, our 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the high E, and our ring finger on the 3rd fret of the B string. I call this the triangle chord because it's kind of like, if you look at the shape of it, it's like an upside down triangle, the ring finger being the point of that triangle. All right? So here we're not playing low E or A. We're just strumming the bottom 4 strings. That's D major. And then we have D minor. Leave your ring finger right where it is. Your middle finger is going to go to G, 2nd fret. Your pointer finger is going to go to high E, 1st fret, and that'll be a D minor. Same thing, we're not playing low E or A. All right? Make sure when you're going over these chords, you take your time. Go to anthonylabruno.com/lessons for all chord diagrams. You can print them out, you can screenshot them, whatever works for you. And make sure when you're practicing, and what I did when I first started playing was to go between as many chords as I could as randomly as possible to get really comfortable and see how fast I can go between them all, so that at any given point, if I'm playing a song, I can call up a G chord and just know right where it is. Just as quick as that. So just go through them randomly. They might not all sound great next to each other, but just for practice, just to get really used to where it is in your fingers and how to play it on the guitar, that's what I recommend. All right? So you just went through the CAGED system. Congratulations. I'll see you next time for another lesson. Thanks for watching.